Welcome to Mixed Media Creations with me, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill. Take time to start following me on Instagram. Here's the address. Today we have the Journaling by 5 revamped and revisited. I'm continuing to finish those pages that I went through steps 1 through 5. The videos for those steps can be found in the description box. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and select the option to be notified of videos as soon as I upload. So when I'm finishing these pages, while there's a certain amount of similar things happening, edging the page, how I achieve the various effects may be different. And so I think there's value to you to watch all those videos. That's why these ones I've really sped up a little bit, because quite honestly, you need to spend the time finishing your pages and honing those skills. If you watch all 5 of these videos where I finish all 20 pages, you can come up with a whole new repertoire of things that you can do to finish your pages, your art journaling pages, your mixed media creations. Have a pen and pencil handy and write down the different techniques that you see me doing. Again, there's some repetition. Here I'm using the float technique. But the colors that I use or the order that I go, you can learn a lot. So here I'm using the float technique, and as I'm looking, I chose to use black, but because there is black in the background. But I could have just as easily used that dark purple that was in there, and that may have worked just as well. So don't be afraid to switch it up a little bit and deviate from the black. You'll get some interesting effects. And later on in some of the other pages, you'll see me doing just that. Now this page, I decided to leave the background pretty much as it was. I'm not adding color. I really like how at the top the paint went on top of the stencil and colored it, and on the bottom they show white. So you have the same modeling paste through a stencil, but getting two very, very different looks. And one of my goals was to try to leave some white space on them. So as I'm floating the black acrylic on here, I'm just building up layers. And believe me when I tell you, slow and steady. Don't put too much paint on that. You will regret it. It will be too dark, too messy. You can add more over time. So when you see me doing this, you're going to see me turning the page a lot and drawing in between. And I kind of rushed the process a little bit because for the sake of the video. But in between layers, you should make sure that it's dry. Now I could be taking my Stabilo All pencil around here. I like using the acrylic float technique because the acrylics, once it's done, it's permanent. Whereas the Stabilo will reactivate, watercolor pencils will reactivate. Inktense blocks, they say they're permanent, and they're mostly so, but they might. But I also know on this page, I'm not really going to be adding a whole lot of wet medium where I'm adding that. I'm going to be gluing down the sentiment, but that's about it. So I cut out the sentiment, Expect Miracles. Now this is one of my favorite fonts. It's called Lost in Wild, and it's size 48 on the Word program. And I semi-fussy cut around it, leaving that white on it. And I left the white on this page because there is white in the background. And I always like to have, if I'm introducing a color, it needs to be in at least a couple places. And I'm just using gel medium to glue this down. Now this font, Lost in Wild, as well as any of the other fonts that I mentioned, they're either a free font that I got from defont.com, and I have a video somewhere in my playlist where I talk about how to download and install those on your computer. So they can be found there. Or I have purchased some from Silhouette. So, and I'm not sure if this one is from one or the others. But if it's not on Defont.com, then it's from Silhouette. And Defont.com has so many that you'll find something very similar to that. But I like this because it's a script one, but it's very bold. You get some really dark script on there. And that shows up really well on my art journal pages. And I'm just grabbing some black paint with a liner brush just to touch up some places that my printer may not have printed out so well. And then I go with the liner bottle around the outside edge just to frame the picture, just to frame the page. Now this one, again, I'm using the font Lost in Wild. I blew it up. I was larger here. I think this is size 72. And this time I fussy cut it completely right around the letter. And here I am fussy gluing. Oh, I had such a hassle with this. It was sticking to my fingers, and because I didn't use thicker paper, it was ripping, and I had to recut it, reprint it, and recut it. But I think it's worth it in the end. Now this page, I really like the simplicity of it. Lots of white space, and I did not feel that I needed to add very much to this one at all. So basically you're going to see me add the sentiment here and use my Stabilo All pencil to make those birds stand out a little bit more from the background. Now when I cut this out of a magazine, there was a little bit of blue there, so I'm kind of going on top of the magazine as well as on the page below. And that's just kind of melding the two surfaces together a little bit more. I'm not a big fan of fussy cutting. My friend Yvonne loves to fussy cut. Not me. Maybe too many years of cutting bulletin boards and activities for the kids that I taught. I don't know, but I just don't have the patience for it right now. And again, I'm just building up. Now, I'm using a Stabilo All pencil. You can use a watercolor pencil, Inktense blocks, or you could do the float technique. Each one has a slightly different effect. I could also use my woodless charcoal pencil, although there is a bit of a difference in the look of putting just dry medium on there and kind of smudging it and wet medium. So not all pages are going to require a lot of work. This one is a perfect example of, less is more. And I was very proud of myself for just leaving it as it was. And then I just grabbed my Posca black pen, and I'm just doing dash, some doodling around the border, very simply. Now this one, I'm not sure. The background, I like it, but I don't like it. So I decide, again, when I'm unsure, I edge the outside. And there's lots of black in this one, so this time I just grabbed my black gelato. Now, I am not a fan of the gelatos. When they came out, when I first started doing art journaling, I thought, these are an absolute must-have. I don't like them. I don't like working with them. The most used one is the black because I will use it for edging, and it works very, very well for that purpose. Now I'm just using black acrylic paint, and I am floating the acrylic. One of my viewers commented that you can buy a float medium that will make this process easier. I think it's from Plaid or Folk Art, and I've seen them. I've never used that, but it just makes the color kind of bleed out, and it just goes a little bit easier. So if it's a technique that you want to try, you can buy that. It's fairly inexpensive, and give it a try. There are also videos if you Google it, float technique on YouTube. Do a search on YouTube. You'll find videos that'll show you how to do that. I highly recommend that technique because it's so very functional. At this point in time, I'm not really sure what I want to do with the background. When I look at this background, right off the bat, the rich dark colors just seem to scream summertime to me. And so I kind of went with that when I chose the image on there, and she's having fun in the sun. And I kind of wanting this circle thing here to represent the sun. So I'm putting a combination of bronze, Liquitex ink, acrylic ink on the top and bottom for a little bit of shimmer and shine. And then I think I used some of the yellow, my acrylic paint as well. Didn't quite get the effect that I wanted, but I liked adding that little bit of yellow. It reads really well with the yellow of her shirt and the color of the swing, and even her legs there. It just introduces or uses a color that's already there. And it somewhat lightens the page. So using the float technique, as you can see, really made this girl kind of pop off the page more than she was at the beginning. And I am taking the time to dry. And now I want to do some splattering, and I'm going to either I grab gold, or I think I just use the Liquitex acrylic ink that I had there and water it down even more and then splatter. It's funny when you look at a page how you get that feeling, this is a summer page, or this is spring, Now I had the quote, collect moments, not things, and I thought that worked rather well. And then I was, kind of cutting it down, getting rid of some of the white, playing with this, additioning different ways of placing it. And again, when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, hey, that looks really good. It kind of balances out the swing and the bottom and the top. But at the time, I thought not. So I went with a different quote. And this one says, don't forget to play, which I thought was, here's an adult on a swing, right? We need to sometimes play, and whether it's with our art or, just enjoying life. And that's something that, I want to remind myself. I wanted to bring out the texture paste here, and I thought, oh, if I outline it, that'll work. No, I didn't like it. Now this font here is Henny Penny, the top one, and the bottom, the word embrace, is in Bang Whack Pow. And again, they could be found either at defont.com, which are free fonts, or in the Silhouette store. But I don't keep track of that, and they all install to my Word, so. And here I couldn't quite decide which sentiment I wanted, but I also, I had the sentiment at the top, don't forget to play, and I needed something at the bottom to balance that out. There was too big of a space down there, so that's why I chose to do two sentiments that go together. And Henny Penny at the top is size 48, at the bottom is size 60. And then because there was the white on the sentiment, I decided to splatter with white paint, introduce that white in one more place. I just found that it was lacking on the page. And the rule is you kind of want to have it at least in a couple places if you're introducing a color. Otherwise, it just looks like it may not belong. So I'm quite happy with this page, considering that I really wasn't sure about the background. So on this page, we have this music paper at the top, which just doesn't seem to fit in. So I used some of that copper Liquitex acrylic ink and color it so it matches the color of, I don't know if the clock tower, is that Big Ben? I don't know. But it matches the color, and it now seems to fit a little bit more. Remember, when you are finishing, you're going to bring out certain things, make them pop, and push back others that you don't want to see so much. Now here, I'm using white acrylic paint to float the acrylic and to shade or highlight around the central focal image. And I chose to do that because the background is dark. And so the black, it wasn't going to make it pop like I would want it to. So I thought, okay, let's try this. And I really like the effect. It kind of gives a bit of a halo effect around the image. So again, don't limit yourself to just using black. Try other colors. Now I really like how the texture paste kind of swoops across the page, and we have this blue, dark blue with some copper paints kind of scraped onto the texture parts there. I really like that look, and this is going to be something that I'm going to take from this page and try to do on purpose in an art journal page or on a canvas. So if I like the way a background worked or the color combination or something about something that I've done in the journaling by fives, I will choose to deliberately recreate that, or as close as possible, in my other art. So I find like a lot of art journaling, and definitely the journaling by five process, allows you to create and come up with some interesting things that you can capitalize and then do on purpose. So I'm using black. We kind of have two layers of items. We have the road behind, so I'm doing, using the float technique there with the black, and then the focal image on the very top gets white, and that kind of gives you some perspective there. I kind of giggle as I look at the stamping on here, and it was done so quickly because of course it's timed. When I do a page, how thoughtful I am. Here I'm using the Stabilo All pencil to go around, and I'm just activating it. And yes, this Stabilo All pencil is blue. There's also white in the Stabilo All pencils, and I'll put a link to those in my Amazon store in the description box below. Now the font here, we haven't gotten to that, sorry. Now I'm just edging it with ink a little bit because I like the blue and then I like the black. I like double layering it. Just gives it more. And then I'm rubbing some of the ink on the higher points of the texture paste there that I put through the stencil. And that just adds just that little something. Now the font that I used at the top is called Agency, and it's another one of my favorites, and I think that might actually be a Word font that came with Word. I don't think it was one of the ones that I either purchased or got from defont.com. And the other one is the Lost in Wild, and you're right if you think that's one of my favorites. It really stands out. Now I thought about, and I still might do it, go with some of my brown distress ink and just kind of dirty up or age the sentiment on here. It's reading a little bit more white than I want it to. There's not a whole lot of pure white anywhere in the background, so I just kind of want it to match kind of that yellowed, aged look. So all told, to do all 4 pages, to finish all 4 pages with the fonts already selected and basically cut out, took about an hour and a half, just to give you a time frame. But doing the finishing process is time consuming, but it is so worth it. And here I'm just using my Posca pen to outline around there. Just make sure that all your paint is dry. And here are the 4 finished pages. Enjoy. I'll see you with video number 3, the next 4 pages. Thanks for watching.